Hello. It's been a long time, hasn't it? But certain events recently have, I thought I need to get back and do a little bit more of what I was planning to do. But I haven't done anything since the summer, so I thought I'd do something now. Okay, what I wanted to do was something else, but it's going to take too long to do that, so I'm going to crack on with this. A bugbear that I've had for a long time is in relation to the celebration of birthdays. And as you know, if you ask the average punter on the street, what do you know about Jehovah's Witnesses? And they'll say to you, well, yeah, they're the guys who don't celebrate Christmas, they don't celebrate birthdays, and they don't have blood transfusions. They don't know anything else about what the belief structure is, that they believe that very shortly everybody on the earth, apart from Jehovah's Witnesses, is going to be cruelly put to death by God, the loving God that we all allegedly believe in. But they know about birthdays, blood and Christmas. Now, I became a witness, as I said before, when I was around about, it might have been 9 or something. So therefore, I celebrated birthdays. You know, well, obviously I don't remember the first 2, briefly remember the 3rd, but I do remember the 4th and the 5th, you know, quite strongly, because a lot of people came round. And the big occasions, your birthday. And when you're a child, birthdays are, you know, quite a big event. You know, it's your birthday. You know, it's not like Christmas whereupon everybody's celebrating all around the world. You know, it's different. It is your day. It is your day. It is your birthday. And when you are young, birthdays are, you know, I think it's quite a big important part of your life. It's that day where you feel special, and everybody makes a fuss of you when normally they can't be arsed. So, you know, it is a big day. So it's a big day. As you get a little bit older, of course, you don't really want to remember how old you are. You know, you don't want to know that, you know, you've cracked on to 40 now, and now you're 50, and you've only got your 60th to look forward to. You sort of dismiss your birthdays and, you know, please don't remind me it's my birthday. But when you're a kid, birthdays are quite important. And when we started going to the meetings, straight away we knew straight away, we don't celebrate birthdays. And we were given 2 examples why. Now this is what I was brought up with. I was brought up, the examples were, there's 2 examples in the Bible. I think there was one example of Pharaoh's birthday and Herod's birthday, which obviously the time span between those two birthdays was, I don't know what the time span must have been, but it's, you know, at least 1,000 years, probably more, 2,000 years. And of course in Pharaoh's birthday ended up with, I think, the chief baker getting his head cut off. And in Herod's birthday, of course, it ended up with John the Baptist getting his head cut off. So they were given examples of that's 2 pagan leaders which ended up with the death of somebody. Although obviously I don't think the baker was a believer in the God Jehovah. So there you go. It wasn't all against people who believe in the one true God, allegedly. And that was one of the reasons we were given. Was saying, look, there's only 2 instances on the Bible. It's not mentioned anywhere else, and it was celebrated by 2 pagan guys, which ended up in the death of somebody. And also the reason was given is because they and I don't think they do this anymore. I don't think they try to wang this one anymore. But the reason was given was that a birthday draws attention to yourself. It draws attention to self and not to Jehovah. And it's all about you that day, and it shouldn't really be all about you. And so you're drawing attention to yourself. Like, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's my birthday. And therefore you're detracting from the worship of Jehovah. That was really, and honestly, I'm not joking you. It may not be the case anymore that they use that, but that's what we were brought up with. So we brought up 2 examples. And so therefore, that's you know, we just stuck. I was brought up that party line. So from 9 onwards, no more birthdays. Not a birthday, not a sausage. And you just got used to it. And back then it wasn't. I think it's a bigger deal these days because it's so easy now on Facebook. Oh, it's your birthday and all the birthday celebrations. And of course, people do a lot of parties, and you go out to play places where all the kids go. But you know, when I was young, it didn't exist. You know, your birthday party, you had a couple of cousins around, and maybe the next door neighbour and his cat, and that was about it. And your nan. and your mum and your dad was at the pub. But apart from that, you know, your birthdays, it wasn't particularly a big deal as long as you got a decent present on that day. Significantly, I remember my 7th birthday, most of all when I was 7, because I got given my first bike, and also it was the day that the first man walked on the moon. Yes, it was the first day the man walked on the moon. So as I was cycling my bike, Neil Armstrong was taking one big step for man. I think I've said this one before. So anyway, so that's what brought it. So eventually you go to school, and you know, people didn't have birthday parties, and so it wasn't the social structure that we have today. So you never really felt I never at that time really felt that I missed out, to be honest with you. 18, I turned 18, and my birthday, I was in the Edinburgh Convention, and the only significance about turning 18 is that for the first time I was able to go into a pub, because I didn't look my age, and I was always saying, no, I couldn't blag, but oh, I'm actually 19, pal, you know, there's no way I even looked 18 when I was 18, and when I was 17 I looked, well, I don't know, 14. So it only turned up that when I was 18 I could actually go into a pub and somebody could buy me a drink without the barman coming up and taking it from the table, which actually did happen to me once. It was really embarrassing. And I wasn't 18. And so that was it. And funny, when I turned 18, I never bothered to even drink at that time, because still drinking was a little bit frowned upon. So that was it. So no celebration of birthdays whatsoever. I became 21, and I was working in a place in Chester, and then I came, you know, all of a sudden, around about dinner time, the people came down into my office and said, "We believe you're 21 today." Somebody in HR, when I was there, only a short while, noticed my birthday, and put it in the calendar of staff members' birthdays. When they realised I was 21, they came down with a card signed by everybody. They bought a couple of presents for us and says, "Right, we're taking you to the pub for your dinner, and you're not buying." And I was absolutely touched, because it was the first time anybody had recognised my birthday as being important, especially when you get to those landmark ages of 18 and 21. And that was the last time anybody really celebrated my birthday until I was, well, a long time later, after I left the Witnesses, and even then it was no big deal. So yeah, it was a long time before anybody celebrated my birthday again. So that was birthdays. And when I've spoken to witnesses since, and you say to them, "Why don't you celebrate birthdays?" We you know, you really struggle to convince yourself why we don't. And the reason being, the reason that when it really touches, birthdays really touch. When you're an adult, like I said, it doesn't bother. It's when you come to the significant day that you have a child. This is when it becomes really difficult to trying to equate this one, because in my own case and my wife's case, we decided not to have a child till 13 years of being married, and when we thought, well, Armageddon's not coming, we better crack on and have a child. And so when our son eventually came, and he came 2 weeks late, it was a phenomenally big deal. And when anybody has a child, especially their firstborn or they're an only child, as in our son's case, your child's birthday is a big event. It's probably more important than your wedding day, because it all of a sudden the dynamics in your family completely change, and all of a sudden, instead of you just caring for this other person, both of you now, the most important person in your life is no longer each other or that relationship, it's your child, and that continues right up until the point that they leave home and carries on. That never goes on. You know, the birth of your child is phenomenally massive. It is huge. And the day of your child's birth, as in my case, was the happiest day of my life. And extraordinarily, everybody in the congregation wanted to share in that event. Literally, we had visitor upon visitor, although, right enough, the day after my son's birth, I was in Spain, but another story. So literally, you know, the day of the birth and the next day, people coming along, you know, cards and presents, you name it. And when we got back to the house, there was more cards and presents and more visitors, and the whole house was covered with all these cards saying congratulations on the birth of your baby boy or your son or whatever it was. Presents galore. So in other words, everybody was celebrating the birth of our son. all the witnesses, everybody, you know, pictures, you name it, big events, witnesses, big events. And 1 year later, the most important day in your life as a family, as a parent, as a married couple, and your son's life as a little kid coming into the world, 1 year later, that event is to be completely and utterly forgotten about. It's a non-event. The celebration or the anniversary of the birth of the most important person in your life and the biggest day in your life is completely forgotten about. You can't even remember it. You can't even buy your son a little present. You know, it is extraordinary. And I've spoken to witnesses about this before, and I'm saying, how do you feel about the fact they haven't been able to celebrate your child's birthday? And they say, yeah, I can't quite understand that one. You know, everybody goes overboard on the actual day of his birthday, but 1 year later, it's as though it never happened at all. It's as though this massive event in your life has just become a complete non-event. It's really odd. It's really odd because if those two events in the Bible, of Pharaoh's birthday, the beheading, and Herod's birthday and the beheading, if they wouldn't have happened, birthdays wouldn't be mentioned in the Bible. Not at all. Birthdays would not be mentioned in the Bible. So we wouldn't have something to go back and say, oh, well, you know, bad things happened. But extraordinary, I'm not too sure about this, but I'm pretty sure about this, but I don't think wedding anniversaries are mentioned in the Bible either. And imagine if the party where John the Baptist's head got taken off was the anniversary of Herod's its wedding anniversary, or it was Pharaoh's wedding anniversary. Would that mean, therefore, that because it hadn't mentioned the whole of the Bible about wedding anniversaries, and the only two occasions where wedding anniversary had been mentioned that it resulted in the beheading of two people, would that mean, therefore, that pagan people had celebrated their wedding anniversaries? It's not mentioned. It's not celebrated by the Jews or mentioned in the Christian Greek scriptures, and so therefore, it's a pagan event, and therefore Jehovah's Witnesses should not celebrate it. But they do. Extraordinarily, yes, they do. Jehovah's Witnesses do celebrate their wedding anniversary, and also another big event in your life, probably maybe the biggest or the second biggest, depending on whether you look at births or whatever. Big event in your life. You know, everybody goes to it. Presents. It's like birthdays, isn't it? Presents, cards, you name it. All the witnesses love it. Everybody loves it. Your wedding. And 1 year later on, it still is a big deal. Oh, a happy anniversary, and it goes on until you get to your all the different state. You reach certain levels of being married. Your silver, your golden, your diamond, all that shenanigans. So celebrated by people. Your wedding anniversary is not mentioned anywhere in the Bible, not at all. It's nowhere there at all. And by quirk of fate, people never got beheaded at a wedding anniversary, but it could have happened. It could have happened. I don't think celebrating a wedding anniversary is. I'm sure people in pagan times must have been celebrating their wedding. I'm sure it was an event. So is it a pagan celebration? I don't know, but Jehovah's Witnesses have no problem in having all the family round, or having a big do when all of a sudden a married couple in the hall have reached landmark stages, big wedding anniversary do, country dancing, ceilidh dancing, food and some alcohol. Wedding anniversaries are there, even though it's not in the Bible, even though they're probably celebrated by pagan people before the Christian movement sprung into operation. Wedding anniversaries are okay, but birthdays, they're not okay. Where do we go with this? It's just unbelievable. And as about this thing that we were told that we shouldn't do birthdays because of drawing attention to self. Well, guess what? When you get married, you're drawing attention to yourself and to your wife. When you have your anniversary, party, all attention on yourself and your wife. When a guy's up on the platform and he's giving his big talk and he's animated, he's drawing attention to himself. He may be allegedly reading from the Bible and trying to reflect the glory of Jehovah, but really it's me, what a great speaker I am. Honestly, the egocentrical, it's just, the ego overload and the ego made woo on some people, drawing attention to self, but allegedly, trying to push it to Jehovah, whatever. So, that really doesn't cut the mustard. Incredibly, another interesting thing is, how many examples in the Bible, I'm not going to mention them here because, if you know your Bible, you should know this really well, but how many examples in the Bible are there of people who got involved in drinking alcohol and it either never turned out well for them or something seedy happened. I'm not going to go into the things, I'll cover that another time. Something seedy happened when certain people were drunk, some older guys were drunk, and something happened to them in their intoxicated state where their own daughters took advantage of them, or their son, had a wee shifty look, or that the people got drunk and then got dancing, or got drunk and engaged in immoral activity, and that ended up with not just the death of one or two, but sometimes it ended up with the death of, hundreds or maybe thousands of people. Loads of instances in the Bible in relating to drink. But bizarrely, you've guessed it, for some reason, drink's still okay, even though it led to the death of thousands of people and all these immoral acts carrying on, but drink is, you can still have a drink. Oh dear, but you can't drink on your birthday, it's a bit odd. So it's really, really odd. It's really odd, and yet if you try to, the problem is I bumped in a couple of witnesses just the other day in our area because they were karting, and I just thought, I've seen karting, New York, Spain, and in a remote entrance to a ravine in New Zealand. Unbelievable. You come out of a ravine. There's a couple of witnesses with their carts. How does that happen? And yet again, they're just sitting there, just talking to each other on the phone, looking cold or looking warm, and nobody's paying any attention. So I went up to these witnesses and I just went to them and just said to them, does this still constitute going from house to house, door to door, when you're on the street talking to nobody? And they went, oh, we have lovely experiences. I'm going, well, you both look miserable and cold, to be honest with you. So I engaged in talking to them. And unfortunately, when I spoke to them a lot about a lot of different things, it came down to this blind obedience that they still believe that the end is very near. That's all they were saying. And this comes round to why the witnesses don't celebrate birthdays. It's because a bunch of guys in New York have taken away their capacity to think and to reason and to just look at things and just figure it out for themselves. And they said, no, you can't do that because you just can't. Because we won't let you do that. Instead, we're going to think it out ourselves. We're going to look at the Bible and go, right, in this instance, which isn't the Bible, we're going to misapply this scripture here to this particular area of life, which isn't covered in the Bible, but we're going to misapply this scripture here. And therefore, you've got to say what we do. And if you don't do it, we'll get rid of you, and you won't be able to speak to all your friends and your family anymore. And that's what people do. And the reason why people so willingly believe what these guys do is because these guys have persuaded them to say that God works through us. So you think, oh my God, if I go against these guys' wishes in America, even though none of this makes any sense, especially in relation to birthdays, for instance, even though this doesn't really make any sense, I don't want to be disrespectful for God, because He's working through this organisation. So I've got to do it, even though really I struggle to even explain this to myself. Never mind anybody else. Ask any Jehovah's Witnesses about birthdays and say, look, explain this to me. Explain the whole birthday, the day of the birth. Come on, explain to it. Wedding anniversaries, explain it to me. Even though they go, yeah, but we have to do it because that's what Jehovah's organisation says it. And this comes down to complete blind obedience, complete blind faith, and they just do this. And you just say, you just give away to these men any any reasoning ability you've got. And it's awful to see people and you think, goodness sake, you've been brainwashed. But they won't have it. But it is obviously the sign of a cult, where you basically just say you do what some other guys tell you what to do, or otherwise you get booted out, and we know what happens then. It is completely and utterly unbelievable. And that's just the way it is. And the worst thing about it is, when I spoke to these witnesses, I just gave them an example. I says, well, how come, the society keeps on changing their thoughts? Wouldn't that say to you that maybe God is not speaking through these people, that they keep on changing the thoughts? And you just got the bit, well, Jehovah allows us. I'm going, so Jehovah allows you, the organisation, to fundamentally make these mistakes, print them, believe them, and then 20 years later or 30 years later come on and say, well, actually, we've had a rethink on there. Unbelievable. And yet that's what the witnesses, all 8 million of them, have been sucked into believing, that they believe anything that these guys tell them, even if it's a contradiction of what was told, what they were brought up with, for 20, 30, 40 years, they'll still believe it because they think it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful that Jehovah's shining this new light, this new explanation of the scripture, which, why have you seen this one before? Unbelievable how these people do that. And they think it's brilliant. They think it's great. It's further proof that God's using the organisation. Honestly, to me, it'd be further proof that God isn't using this organisation, because you wouldn't have to keep on changing the things that they keep on teaching. It's further proof that he's not using that organisation, not proving that he is using the organisation. Anyway, that's my explanation on birthdays, why Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe it, why the experience I had as being a Jehovah's Witness and not celebrating birthdays, and why I think, especially if you're a parent and if you have a son, how difficult that must be. How difficult that must be as a parent, as a Jehovah's Witness, that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, as your son, your child goes through these yearly anniversaries, that the whole date just comes a completely non-event. And it is so sad. And I'm glad that I think we only missed my son's first birthday. I know he wouldn't remember it, but I think from 2, 3, 4, 5, we've made sure that he knows when his birthday is, and we've done as much as we can to ensure that his birthdays are memorable days, that you can go back and say, on this birthday I did this. So we try to make it special for him, because honestly, your birthday is a big deal, and more importantly, your child's birthday is a monumental big deal, and it should never ever be forgotten, and nobody should be able to say to you, you can't celebrate that fact of becoming a parent, or your son becoming a little person in their right and starting this journey in their life. Anyway, that's my thoughts on birthdays, and I will be coming back with other stuff shortly, because I'm back in the groove again. So see you later. Bye bye.